It's really a pleasure for me to introduce Petra. Petra is a professor at the University of Groningen. She studied physics in Italy at the University of La Sapienza and specializing in solid state physics. She worked at the National Surface Science Lab in Italy, in Trieste, at the Bell Labs in the USA, and in Belgium at the University of Namur, before she got the chair in experimental solid state physics at the university in Groningen. And currently, she is the Dean of the Graduate Studies for the University of Groningen. Her main research interests concern the graphene and other 2D solids, as well as molecular motors and switches. She's currently also the president of the European Physical Society. And in 2013, she was appointed also as the officer of the Order of Orange and Nassau by the Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands. Thanks a lot for your participation, Petra. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Oreste. So I do what you asked me to do, and that is to tell how the situation for women changed at this university over the time that I have been here. So if we start to put things into context, this is how the distribution of women is. Do you see it? The next slide? Yes.
Yes,
okay.
Petra, it's fine. Petra, it's fine. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is how the situation looked like in 2002 and then in 2006. So I came here in 2003. Essentially, the number of women full professors was in the single-digit numbers, and did not at all reflect the 1/3 approximately up to the PhD. So just to show you the situation at this university in the Faculty of Science and Engineering in December 2002, we had 90 female PhD students, 61 mainly temporary scientific staff. So that corresponds to the European average of around 30%. But already when you went to lecturer, there was only 12%, senior lecturer 8%, and professors 4%. In other words, I was only the third woman in the Netherlands on a chair in physics, 3 in the whole country. So what is it all due to? Of course, unconscious bias. We have heard already in Marina's talk something about it. Unconscious bias is the shortcuts in our heads that make us decide things when we have to decide quickly. And sometimes these decisions are not correct. And so if you look at the example below here, where you see some writing in red, and it is not what you thought it was. So how does this influence career progressions? Well, there is a very nice model for that, where the authors took an organization with 8 levels, and then they attributed by Monte Carlo extraction a performance bias to each person, and all those above a certain threshold were promoted, and the women were given a 1% bias penalty. Now, 1% bias, you have to know, is very little. Most of us, and I will show you how you can measure your own at the end, have much more. Now, if you do these promotion rounds for 20 times from this 50-50 situation, you end up in this situation. So you see exactly what is happening. The higher you go up, the lower is the number of women, which is exactly what happens in the universities very often. So these were also the years were also stimulated by the EU. The question of female participation came to the attention of everybody. And we had a very inspired dean at the time, Douwe Wiersma, and he said, well, special circumstances require special measures. And he invented the Rosalind Franklin Fellowship Program, which means that he set up a certain number of tenure-track assistant professorships exclusively for women. And he convinced the university board to pay for the first 5 years when these ladies did not have tenure yet. Now we are quite a few years later, and if we look at the several rounds in the 15 years that have passed, 130 fellows have been hired in the whole university. So we have had 8 rounds so far, 2002, which was exclusively for the Faculty of Science and Engineering, and then the other rounds were for the whole university. In our faculty, we have had more than 100 applicants each time for not many positions. So there is really no excuse for not hiring women. There are a wonderful number of very capable women around. And in our last round, we had 249 for the general Rosalind Franklin positions and another 200 for the sector plan positions, which are special positions offered by the Dutch government, which were advertised also in the Rosalind Franklin round. Now, what is special about this program is that there is a very clear career progression. After 5 years, you go from tenure-track assistant professor to tenured adjunct professor if you meet the rules. That is in the Dutch organization, an UHD with jus promovendi. And after another 4 to 7 years, you can be promoted to full professor, again, if you meet the conditions. And the conditions are very clear. What we did in the advertisements as a university, we formulated things very generally. So we did not say we want a laser physicist, but we said we are looking for ambitious, creative women who want an independent career towards full professorship, etc. And we gave them teaching of 30% and a startup package as the starting conditions. So what we did not know at the time is that actually there are big differences on how women and men apply depending on the text of the advertisement. And all this is scientifically studied now. And there is actually a program on the web where you can test your advertisement on the basis of these findings to make it more inclusive and therefore to invite people to apply. So this is the installation of the ladies of the round of 2009 or 2008. And you can see our then Minister of Science and Education and our then Crown Princess, now Queen, who was present at this installation, and many of the fellows are on the picture. So what are the conditions? There is a very clear list of conditions, and it has also been revised now recently to comply more to the recognize and reward principle. But all the time, it was very clear to the candidate and to the supervisor of the candidate what had to be achieved. And the promotion rate is actually very good. More than 80% made it to a tenured position. And currently we have 37 Rosalind Franklin Fellows in our faculty. There is 1 lecturer, 18 tenure track professors, a good number of adjunct professors, 18 and 8 full professors, but also 12 left. And the reason was not that they did not make it, but very often they got an offer from another university before being promoted to full professor here, or their partner got a very exciting offer somewhere else and they decided to go with their partner. So our criteria have changed, as I said. So, for example, when the success rate for research grants went down over the years, also the condition for promotion is no longer that you have to have gotten the grant, but it's now that you have had to have good evaluations of your proposal, which is something that you can influence yourself. The decreasing rate of success you cannot influence yourself. So the Rosalind Franklin Fellows have been extremely successful in getting prestigious grants in our faculty, but embedding has not always been easy. There have been instances of jealous colleagues and microaggression. There have also been problems in cultural differences between the Netherlands and the other countries because many of the Rosalind Franklin Fellows were coming from abroad. In the other faculties, especially the smaller faculties, also not everybody was happy about this program because you have to have a position for this fellow, and the budget does not easily allow for extra positions. So in fact, if you get somebody in for a certain specialty, you cannot have a retired professor replaced by the same thing that he or she did. So that creates a few problems. But overall, this program has been extremely successful. What we have also done is that over the years, we have become much more inclusive. So now there is a very rigid guide for recruitment procedures with checks. And you are not allowed to fill a position if on the short list there are not at least 40% female candidates. Now you would think this is really an imposition, but by now, everybody in this faculty, if we don't have enough female candidates who apply for a position, starts worrying and starts recruiting applications in order to be sure that we don't have an uneven distribution of good candidates on the shortlist. There is very serious unconscious bias training for the selection committee. We have an excellent dual career program in which our alumni network of the university is used to find jobs for partners if the partners don't want to work at the university, so do something else. Instead, if the partner looks for a job at the university, they are considered internal candidates, which means that they're always invited for the interview. And we also create special positions for the partners by financial agreements between the faculties and help from the board of the university. We also take good care of onboarding, so to help somebody from abroad to move easier into the Groningen and the Dutch Society and Research Society. So new staff gets an education primer which explains how education works here. There is an introduction to the PhD program by the graduate school. In many institutes, a new staff member is assigned a guardian angel, which is a staff member that has to make sure that the person is introduced into the Dutch research community, gets invited to talk at national conferences, it gets invited to other universities so that people start to know her or him very well. And we make sure that people don't learn only Dutch as a language, but they are also offered a course where they learn about the Dutch politics and Dutch culture, in the sense that they have to do conversations in which they are taught how the polder policy works in meetings and how to give negative feedback to collaborators, etc. We give them the booklet by the Dutch Academy, a beginner's guide Dutch Young Academy, A Beginner's Guide to Dutch Academy, which explains to them how this country works. And we recommend that they read books like Dealing with the Dutch, which explains Dutch culture, which is surprisingly different from the culture of the countries around us, and also very different from what you expect if you come from abroad, or by how the Netherlands are advertised in general knowledge. It's a very different country once you come here and you live here. So all this is important. For continued support, there are intervision groups, there is a mentoring system. We introduced that if you experience life events, so if you have to care for somebody, or if you get a baby, or like now, childcare situation in Corona times, all this allows you to say whether you want a longer tenure period. So the point is that you are not obliged to take a longer period. You decide whether you want it or not. And then we have this childcare program in extraordinary situations. So that was introduced because in Groningen, the normal childcare is available and very easily available, but it is expensive. What is not available is childcare for special situations. So if you go to a conference, or if you go and visit a research partner elsewhere, during that time you need more childcare. And the program allows you to organize that yourself, but you get the cost reimbursed. And likewise, if you are visiting scientists at our university, you get all your childcare expenses reimbursed. And at all conferences that we organize as a university partner, we offer childcare at the conferences and at the workshops. Now you would say, but this is a big expense. No, it is not. This program costs about 35,000 euro per year, which on a university budget is absolutely nothing. So no university has an excuse not to have a childcare program of that type. What we also try is to make the progress interviews every year of those who are on a tenure track a coaching event where several people brainstorm with the tenure tracker how to satisfy the criteria. For the promotion committee, the ones who do it best is the faculty of medical sciences, because they not only do bias training of their committee, they also have a group dynamics expert who explains to the committee when they are interviewing and when they are discussing a candidate what is really going on. And with this, the committee becomes a much better committee and becomes much more inclusive and objective in judging candidates. Also, the procedures of the promotion committee were scrutinized for inclusiveness by a Talent to the Top coach here in the Netherlands, and that has brought extra improvement. So I would wish that all the faculties would adopt this policy. What is a point of attention is how a female staff member lives within the community, because very often support staff is not used to a woman boss or to a international boss, people who have a different look and a different culture from what the support staff members were used to. And that can lead to unwelcome comments, to bullying, to all kinds of things. And the women themselves tend to attribute these problems to their own ineptness, to their own wrong way of managing the group, and are reluctant to talk about it. While it has nothing to do with them. It has only to do with the fact that they are different from what the support staff was used to before. So now we are also thinking of coaching of support staff to overcome this problem. So you would say, well, that all sounds very nice. Unfortunately, despite all these efforts, things change very slowly. Here you see how the numbers evolved in the last 10 years. So yes, there is progress, but it is not as fast as you would like. Also, so if you compare to when I arrived at the university, of course, the difference is very big. So we have a slightly higher number of PhD students. At the postdoc level, it's the same. But if you look at the lecturers, at senior lecturers, and at full professors, the numbers have gone up considerably. And so I would like to show you those. For physics, we have lots of female role models here at the assistant, associate, and full professor level. And we also have a fantastic number in astronomy. So altogether, we have 21 female faculty in physics and 10 in astronomy. So there is really enough people to learn from, that we are all different and we all found solutions on how to make a career in this world. So, but we have not changed only in terms of women, we have also changed in terms of internationals. So when I arrived, 90% of the staff of this faculty was international. Now it is more than half already. It was 54% in 2018. So this means that also the faculty had to adapt. And since 2017, we have 2 diversity and inclusion trainers to improve the intercultural competencies of the staff and the students. And not only the staff is trained in diversity and inclusion friendly behavior, but there are also workshops for the technical staff, for the support staff, for the student assistants. Everybody is included in this. And for example, there are also particular courses like how to select and supervise a Chinese student who is culturally probably the most far from the Dutch mentality that one can think of, the Dutch culture one can think of. There are courses for the staff in communicating with students with symptoms in the autistic spectrum. And we have mediators who intervene when there are conflicts between supervisor and PhD student, because very often these conflicts arise from cultural miscomprehensions. So our efforts were also rewarded by the Diversity Prize of the Dutch Physical Society, which we got a couple of years ago. And so you would think, well, we are certainly doing very, very well. No, we're not. We are in the middle field for what concerns female professors. We are not at the top at all. In physics, we are, by the way. In physics and astronomy, we are the best in the Netherlands. But as a university over all faculties, we are just in the middle field. So if you would like to learn more about good practices, there is this little booklet, Improving Diversity and Inclusiveness in Dutch Physics, where all the best practices of all the Dutch universities were collected, and which is available on the website dutchphysics.org under downloads. So never give up, even if it goes slow, the future is bright for diversity in science. And if you want to have a few tips on how to support your colleagues, if you are among the privileged few and you would like to support minorities, I recommend that you subscribe to the Male Allies newsletter, which gives tips every Friday. If you want to know how biased you are yourself, just go on the website of Harvard University and do the test, and you will be surprised from the result. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Petra, for your interesting talk. And it was really interesting, really. And you got a question from Manuela from the chat. And her question is, at which level does this 40% criterion hold? PhDs, postdoc, teachers?
Which 40% criterion?
She asked, yeah.
Many numbers.
It was at the beginning, yes.
My question was about the criteria that you mentioned for the percentage of female candidates that should be invited to apply for a position, I wanted to understand whether this only holds for tenure tracks or for all the position at the university. And by the way, thank you very much for your very nice talk.
So it is for faculty staff. So for assistant professors, associate professors, and full professors. That's where it applies.
Okay, Petra, thank you. And there is also another one from Marina. Is saying that her talk is very interesting, and she has a question about the description I used in job offers. So Marina, you can directly ask Petra.
Thank you. Thank you, Petra. It was a great talk. Yes, my question is about the slide you show about the description, how job offers description, of course, affect the application of men and women. So do you think, are there any guidelines to avoid such a stereotypes or a biased description in job offers?
So the study I was referring to, they looked at how many women apply if one uses one description with respect to the other. Yeah. And one sees that if one does formulate things in a less aggressive fashion, there are many more women who apply. So that means that if you want women to apply, and probably it's not only women, but also other minorities, you have to formulate your job advertisement differently. And this is why the authors of the study developed this website where you can put in your text and it will tell you which are things that you write, which will not be favorable for women to apply.
Yeah.
So, and then you can change it if you want.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have time for other question, and also meanwhile there was for you, yeah, that was asking if it's possible to do the download of the presentation. Of course, we need the permission of the speaker, but I can say that on our social essay channel you can find the 4 the talks of the day, and if there are no other questions for Petra, or you can also keep the question for the discussion session later. I would like to thank you again, Petra, for the contribution, for the excellent talk, and